Hello, hello. Nice little, thank you. Nice little small group. So if you guys want, it's completely your choosing, but feel free to move forward. Otherwise, I think if you're comfy where you are, that's a-okay too. Just some quick introductions before we really jump into it. I'll let kind of the others introduce themselves, but I am Becky Poles. I am one of the special ed coordinators here at Middleton. Again, we'll dig more into kind of some of the building specifics at the 6 o'clock presentation, but here at the high school, some of you have already heard this, I know, we organize all of our students by 3 student support centers. And so my colleague here, who will introduce herself in a minute, we split up those 3 student support centers. And so whatever support center your student is assigned to, depending upon which support center we align with, that's how you know which coordinator kind of will be your primary, go-to, if you will. And so I support the Phoenix Support Center, part of Capella, as well as Cardinal Academy, which is our 18 to 21 transition program. I'm going to pass it over. Sure, a little about me. I also, like you all, have a 9th grader starting this year too. But that's my youngest, my baby. And so I have an older student here at the high school as well. Yeah, I don't know. So that's me.
Hello, I'm Nikki Morehouse. I hate a microphone, so if I'm all over the place, that's why. I work primarily with the Antares Support Center and then a couple of the counselors in Capella. So that is the support center that Becky and I split. I've been in the district for quite a while now. I think 14 years. I started out as a special ed teacher here working in the math department and have been in this position the last handful of years. So excited to be working with all of your students. And then we have Liz Merrick. If Liz wants to stand and wave. Liz is the associate principal that works with special education. She also works with student services, but she is an amazing thought partner for us and works closely with us as well. And then we also have an instructional leader. His name is Craig Ganyu. He won't be here tonight, but he is a special ed teacher within our science department, and he serves just kind of as in a leadership role within our department and kind of helps us keep going. So he may be your child's case manager. All of our teachers serve in a capacity of case managing and teaching.
Before I jump too much into kind of the who are we as a special education department, going back to those student support centers too that Ms. Morehouse and I said we align with, each of those student support centers as well have 3 counselors, a school psych, and a school social worker. And so if your student potentially has that as a part of their IEP and or when we're doing the evaluation process, those will be the student services folks that will be a part of that team as well. But more specifically, the special education department. So within our department, we are one of the bigger departments here at the high school. We have 20 special education teachers in the high school, the 9-12 program. We have 2 at Cardinal Academy, our transition program I mentioned earlier. We have 3 speech language pathologists, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist. I think we said 19 paraeducators. And then building-wide, we have our 2 school nurses with our 1 health office assistant as well, nursing assistant. Our department has what we call our theory of action, and you guys can obviously see it here, but our theory of action kind of guides all of our decisions as we're, making changes in any regard. This is kind of our North Star, if you will. And so just like I said, you can see it on the slide, but when we increase students' sense of belonging, and post-secondary preparedness, whatever form that may take, they will grow in their social emotional skills, readiness skills, and academic performance so that they will achieve and exceed their goals in high school and beyond. So we always just like to keep that on the forefront. Just a little bit of kind of the basics of special ed service delivery here at the high school. Our case manager, I should say your students' case managers, will be the same all 4 years, 9 through 12. So I know that's a little bit of a change from the middle schools. The rationale behind that really is you can build that strong connection or relationship between here, us at school, and you guys at home as a family. We obviously always have that end goal of independence. And so by having the same case manager all 4 years, that really allows that case manager to get to know your student and know when can we scale back and promote that goal of independence. And then lastly, just to help scaffold transition services and prepare for post-secondary options. Like I said before, in our theory of action, whatever form that may take, whether that's post-secondary education, entering the workforce, and whether that's supported employment or not, whatever form. And then just to kind of give a little introduction to our continuum of services here at MHS for students with IEPs. Kind of going from right to left, or starting over here, general education classes. So our students are always going to start in that least restrictive environment with their same age peers. And then depending upon IEP team decisions, maybe they, per their IEP, are going to be in a general ed class that's supported by one of our special ed teachers, our co-taught class, we often refer to that as. Maybe they will be part of a guided study. A guided study, again, is something an IEP team would decide for the student, and that might be to address certain social emotional learning skill deficits where they receive that specialized instruction. It could also be for some pointed academic specially designed instruction as well. Maybe per your child's IEP, they have a para in certain environments with them. Fundamental programming there, the fundamental program is more of our self-contained program. And we have some students that receive some services in there for part of the day, and then they're out in gen ed. So it's not kind of all or nothing either. And then lastly, obviously, kind of on that more restrictive end of the continuum is just that one-to-one, if there's a reasoning for your student per their IEP to have one-on-one support. So, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to cover a little like nuts and bolts. You'll hear this again at the larger presentation, but we can talk a little bit more specifics about how these supports help your students. So we have what's called All School Resource, ASR. It's the last block on B days. Essentially, it's like a school-wide study hall. So from the first week or two, your child will be staying with their advisory teacher, just to like learn the process and what it looks like and how that works. But it's an opportunity for case managers to do their case management time with students. So after the first couple ASR periods, case managers are going to be working really closely with your students about creating a schedule and what that looks like and how much support they might need or guidance in how to utilize all the other supports. It is an opportunity for students to sign up and go see other teachers. So maybe they had a dentist appointment and they missed a biology lab. They might go make that up during All School Resource. They might continue taking a math test where they need extended time. It's also a place where teachers can reserve your students. So that's kind of like building wide. For special ed specific, a lot of that will be case management time. Lunch and advisory. So this might be a scary thing if your child is the oldest in your family. We do have an open campus lunch. Obviously, families communicate and set up expectations for their own students, but all of our ninth grade students have lunch together. So they're going to learn on their freshman only day, how to go through the cafeteria, where are options to sit, what can you get to eat, and kind of learn like procedures within the lunchroom space. And then they'll go to their advisory. So they're gonna be with their advisory teacher for all 4 years. So that's something that's very consistent with case managers as well. As Becky mentioned, that's a change from middle school. So case manager and advisory are gonna be two pretty key people in your student's educational career for the next 4 years. Case management, so if your students went to Glacier Creek or Cromrie, they had an opportunity to come over in the spring, and we had them here for a couple hours, and we had our special education teachers there, and at that time, things could have shifted a little bit as we had students move in and move out. They met who their assigned case manager we thought would be. So some of the case managers weren't able to come if they had a test day or whatever, but they got to meet everyone in the special ed department, and then they got to take a tour of the building. So I know this is a really big place, and there's probably a lot of feelings about the first day, but they've been here, there are some familiar faces, so that's a good thing. So case managers prioritize meeting with the students on their caseload during all school resource. The amount of time, right, is really dictated through the IEP and what the IEP team decides is necessary for your student. And they'll work on a variety of different things. They could be doing some social emotional skill instruction, transition planning. If your child is 14, they would have started having what we call a PTP, a post-transition plan. And that seems like it's really far away. And it's part of our job here to make sure that we are preparing your students for whatever their next step is. So we'll have lots of conversations about what they want to do next. Do they want to work? Should we explore careers? All sorts of things. So that's a big chunk of the time. Obviously, it gets a little bit more focused as they move from freshman to senior year. And then as well as academic skill building. It's very individualized. ASR does not look the same for any two kids because it's really geared towards what your child needs, when they need it, and how they need it, and who's going to help them get to where they need to go. So case management, I'm sure some of you are already like, who's my child's case manager? When am I going to hear from them? How, is this set up? Do they know my child's coming? Okay, and we totally get that. Becky and I work throughout the summer. We field a lot of emails. We totally get the anxiety. First of all, I'm going to kind of skip a bullet point here for a second, but our special ed teachers have the opportunity to come in and have a special ed work day next week, Friday. So it's their first contracted day to be here, and one of the things they're going to work on is communicating out with families. So each of them have kind of a welcome letter introducing themselves. Hello, I'm so-and-so, I'm your child's case manager. So just know that it's coming. They just aren't back to work yet. Throughout the school year, email versus voicemail, our teachers do not have their own classrooms. They have office spaces within a hub. So if you are trying to get in touch with them, email is probably the most efficient way, and you'll probably get a response more quickly than if you leave a voicemail. There's a good chance that a case manager might not get back to their desk until the end of the day and hear your voicemail. Not that they're on their email all day, but they're checking throughout if there's an email that's coming through from a parent, right, that might need their attention. So if you need that, that is probably the best way to get in touch with them. Your primary contact person will be your child's case manager. So at the high school, just like middle school, they're part of a larger team, right? So within their student support center, they have the counselor, they have an assigned social worker, a school psych, a dean of students. There's a very large team that supports every child. but your first point of contact should be a case manager, just with like general questions. Now, if you had a math-specific question or an English-specific question, definitely direct that to the teacher, but your first point of contact, just in general day-to-day things, should be your student's case manager. Okay, we threw a lot of information at you. We know you have another presentation coming up. We wanted to give some time for questions, and know that at the end of the larger presentation, there is an opportunity for you to kind of go through some stations. Becky and I will be at one of them to answer any specific questions. But does anyone have any like general questions that you feel like would be good for the whole group? We'll start up here and then we'll go to the back.
If our child is 14, you said you start that conversation about the end. So that's something that the case manager would start with us, like, okay, he's 14, let's start talking about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our case managers have some good resources. There's a website that we can use to actually do with the student of like interests. What do you like? What are you good at? Things like that to kind of narrow in. And we know that what they select right now is probably not going to be right what they continue doing, but it gives us an opportunity to have conversations and explore further topics with them. Yeah. In the back.
For the freshman only day on August 29th, are there case managers and all of those people going to be present that first day?
Yes. Yeah, so it's a fun day. Our whole staff is here. There's starts at the big assembly, and then they immediately go with their advisory teacher and link crew leaders. Those are like junior and senior. They're in leadership roles that will be with the freshman advisory. Yeah, so we'll have some paraeducators here that day to help students that need that support. And then our case managers really try to get around that first day and meet their caseload kids. Yeah, so whether they're popping into an advisory or the afternoon they spend going through their schedule, yes, they will have the opportunity to meet their case manager again at that point. Yeah.
So typically in the past, I've sent emails to all of the teachers at the beginning of the school year to introduce my student and some of her uniquenesses and challenges that you might not see. Is that something that I'm trying to decide if that's something I let go of now as she's in high school, or is that something I should continue to do?
You want to take that?
How much do all of her teachers know about?
Great question, right? That parental debate. How much do I let go? How much do I put on them? I would say one thing we talk about in relation to that like age 14 transition planning conversation, even in IEP meetings, is depending upon what the student is comfortable with, if they're able to share some of that. I know teachers greatly appreciate that, like coming directly from the students. But all of our case managers do send every teacher on your student's schedule an IEP at a glance. And so it'll share kind of more of the IEP specifics, first and foremost, the goals, the accommodations that the student should be given. But they also share kind of some of the, like, here's what the student really excels at. Here's what they love to do. Here are some of their struggles, too. So all teachers will get that for sure. And I think maybe having the conversation with your student and seeing where they're comfortable, too. I don't know if that helps. I know it's not a black or white, but I know we do have some families that still send out something similar to all teachers. So there's nothing wrong if that's what your family decides to do. But right, as our students age up, it's that constant question, what are they taking over now, and what do I still kind of have the reins of? Yeah.
And kind of like, if something's not going quite right, would I hear about it, or would it be like, okay, there's just missing assignments? Do I get a notice for that sort of thing?
Okay.
I'm going to go back to your first question. Whatever email you used to send the next 4 years. That case manager is going to be the one that is going to help maybe even the student write the email to send to the teachers. And if things are coming up, you're going to hear from a regular ed teacher, you might hear from a case manager. But if you've got that spidey sense, that parent sense of like, I haven't seen any homework, I haven't heard anything about math, and it's been 3 weeks, and you've tried to talk to your kid about it, and you're getting I don't have any homework. The case manager or the regular ed teacher would be fine to reach out to and say, I'm just wondering what's going on. We encourage everyone who teaches your child to keep in contact with you, but honestly, your case manager is going to be your home base for those kind of questions that are coming up.
Thank you.
If my child is struggling this year, and we decide that next year we're gonna put him into Park Street, well, what changes do the team follow him to Park Street?
Great question. We have throughout the years had several students both ways, right? Either they decide, hey, for whatever reason, I think Clark Street's a better fit for me right now, or flip that, vice versa. And so what happens is before that transfer actually occurs, we hold an IEP meeting because that is considered a change of placement. And so at that IEP meeting, we always have at least minimally one representative from both buildings, even though we're really technically all in the same building, to make sure that whichever way your student is changing, Clark Street to MHS or MHS to Clark Street, that we know forthrightly how might supports look a little different in each environment, and to ensure that the goals that are already a part of the IEP can still be measured and worked towards.
Their team will probably change though. So Becky and I don't work directly with Clark Street. There's a coordinator there. There's case managers there, so they would have a different case manager.
Right.
Potentially different counselor, psych, social worker, those kind of things. Yeah, good question.
Any other questions at the moment?
We are available. The next presentation doesn't start till 6, so if you have I have a question that I don't ask in front of the group, feel free to come up and ask Becky and I, and we'll kind of hang around, or just come introduce yourselves. We've been typing a lot of student names and schedules and all sorts of things, so I feel like I know all of your kids, and at least by name, and then feel free after the next presentation, we'll be around for other questions and answers as well. So thank you for coming. We're really excited to